So any level of physical activity is better than none. Keeping physically busy and mentally busy are two of the biggest keys to what's called successful aging. And that might strike people as a phrase that's a little unusual. I know when I talked to my old,
I love
my
it. I love successful
I,
aging.
I talked to my radio colleagues about it, and so I said, I do these presentations on successful aging, and they looked at me and they said, well, okay, so you get up and your name's not in the obituaries, so you go about your day, ta-da, successful aging, you're done. Well, that's the good start, is waking up and you're on the upside of the dirt. That's great. That's fine. So far, so good. Now, what are you going to do?
The upside of the dirt.
Yeah, as in being not dead.
I got it.
Down in the valley, moved up from the city. It's a new way of living and I'm trying to get used to it. 1 park coolers, half an ounce of an idiot. Ordered a Manhattan and they call me a Cidiot. At first I hurt my feelings, but it's kinda got a ring to it. When you move to the country, they can tell when you're new to it. I'm looking at a place, but I'm trying to keep fitting in. It takes too long to be a local, so for now I'm a Cidiot.
I'm Matt Zucker, and this is Cidiot, learning to live and love life in the Hudson Valley. Let's talk about how amazing aging can be. I feel like if you're lucky, you can age comfortably and enjoyably anywhere if you plan it out a bit. Say the city with all its energy, culture, healthcare, transportation, cafes, that would be amazing. And that's where I originally intended to live my whole life, well, before I discovered here. And then there's the sea, or by an ocean. That would be stunning for a lot of obvious reasons. Sunsets, the calm, the waves, walking on boardwalks. I think about this a lot. And then, of course, there's the Hudson Valley. You get access to the city, tons of culture and beauty, plus the river. Is this a good place to get older? So who should I talk to about that? Well, this episode I talked to Brian Jones at the Dutchess County Office for the Aging. Brian grew up here, chose to stay, and he shares about the Office for the Aging, about the services offered, how the intent is for people to stay independent in their home if possible. Also about resources available, including the 8 friendship centers all around the county. Plus, Brian's got an amazing voice, and it's no wonder since he's soon to be an announcer for Bard College sport teams. Now that I'm a CTA, a certified tourist ambassador, I need to encourage all people to come here, whether it's for a visit or to live here permanently. Brian even gives advice about how to start planning ahead, with me as an example subject. I think you'll like this episode. You may want to find out more about these services, like Brian says, before you need them. Or you might even want to volunteer with programs like Friendly Calls. So thanks for joining. Now a conversation in 3 short parts. Here we go. Hi, Brian.
Good morning, Matt.
Thanks for coming on Cidiot.
I had to think a little bit about the name, but as I read into more about what you're about, I thought, oh, okay, all right.
I know people have go either way about it.
Yeah. So now I kind of get it, and I hope the folks that are following this podcast do too.
So maybe we could start with about you and your relation to the Hudson Valley, and then we can get a little bit into what you do, which I think is so interesting and it'll be so good for the audience to hear about.
Okay. Well, my name is Brian, and I'm a townie. I grew up in Rhinebeck, born at Northern Dutchess Hospital, lived out on Cedar Heights Road, graduated Rhinebeck High School in 1982, and went to college in far distant New Paltz. And since then, I've lived in Dutchess County in Clinton Corners for many years, a little bit in Hyde Park, and since for about the past 20 years in Tivoli with my wife and 2 kids. And part of what I do at the Office for the Aging is to alert older adults and their caregivers in the county to all the things that they can do. And most of them are pretty much free or very low cost, or there may be an income qualification somewhere along the line. All the things that they can do to maximize their odds of being able to live independently here in Dutchess County, which is what the vast majority of people want.
Right, right. And for you, what made you decide to stay?
I love it here.
Yeah.
I looked around and I did see a lot of my classmates from high school and college move away and did whatever they were doing. But I just kind of you look around, and I guess it's been said before. It's like I feel a little bit like a hobbit. I'm in the Shire and I don't want to go anywhere.
And I'm sure the audience can feel this or sense this, that you are not a newcomer to audio. I really sense like a professional radio voice happening here.
Well, it's not exactly professional because I never had any broadcast training before I went into the broadcasting field. But my first job was actually I spent 6 months with the old Rhinebeck Gazette Advertiser.
Yeah.
And then jumped into radio full time starting around 1989. I've been on most of the stations in the Hudson Valley at some point. And I did that from 1989 up until 2016 when I joined the Office for the Aging. And I still keep my hand in a little bit on the side behind the microphone. And it's going to start in November. I'm the public address voice for the basketball and baseball teams at Bard College.
The Raptors.
Yeah, the Raptors. I've been doing that for about 8 or 9 years. So about another 50 years, I will catch up to Bob Shepard.
Amazing. Great.
I'm working on my Your Attention Please, and I'll get it down. I've got time, I think.
Okay, so we're here to talk about aging, which I haven't ever talked about on the show. And for me, I always, I was determined Jersey kid to go to New York City, and I was going to live there forever. I wasn't even going to leave the island. Like I was going to just, and
Oh yeah.
I think people choose, if you're lucky, you get to choose where you age. And I think the city's great for all sorts of great reasons. I think I've talked about the sea and being out on the water, and I can see people doing that. And for me, I really love the Hudson Valley, and maybe you do too. I guess I'd love to talk about what makes it a great place to get older here and to live here longer. How do I sell people on it?
Well, the resources are there, but the first thing one needs to do is know that they exist. And that's the first thing we come up against is, I will talk to so many people all around Dutchess County where if it's the first time I've met them, they may say to me something like, I had no idea the Office for the Aging, A, existed, and B, did this, that, and the other thing. I'm thinking back to an encounter I had with my mom about 20 years ago. My dad had just passed away, and she was trying to take care of an old house in Rhinebeck all by herself. And this is before I came to the Office for the Aging, but I had some exposure to it through my work in radio. I asked my mom, do you want me to call the Office for the Aging and see if they can help you find a little bit of help around? She cut me off, and she said, no, they're going to put me in a nursing home.
Oh,
and
that's
the
reaction.
It's a common reaction because older people in particular, the one thing that they fear the most, and it's not death. By the time you're older, that's kind of priced into the whole experience. The thing they don't want to give up is their independence and all the things that come with being independent. Right. They don't want to give up the keys to their car. They don't want to give up their nice house out on Cedar Heights Road in my family's case. They want to be able to keep doing the things that they've always done. Well, there are things that you can do, and they're not too terribly difficult to improve your odds of that. But I do want to clear up misconceptions like that. Yeah, if you're a caregiver right now and you're getting to the point where you've got an older family member and you just had the uh-oh moment where, mom is, maybe you haven't seen them in a while and they seem to have lost a step or two mentally. You worry that they fall and things like that. We can help with all those kind of things, but the whole nursing home experience, while it's a key part of the healthcare system, it's not the first step we go to. It's not what most older adults need. I wonder if maybe a lot of people feed off the old stereotype of that old life call ad, the I've fallen and I can't get up.
Right.
It's a famous ad, but it wasn't ever an accurate representation of the day-to-day lives of older people. And as it turns out, Life Call eventually went out of business in 1993. And then another business tried to pick up that catchphrase and made their ads even scarier. And they wound up pulling the ad after everybody got angry, because that's not what older people's existence is really about. They want to be independent, and they want to, like I said, go about doing the things that they were doing before.
Right. So I'll put a link to the Department for the Aging in the show notes and on the episode page. But what kind of services do people call for, and does the department provide? That would give an illustration. I'm sure every county has something like it, but what is the Dutchess County one?
First of all, the definition of aging going by state law is 60 or up and living in Dutchess County, being a caregiver as well. Now, if somebody's got a situation where they live in Dutchess County and let's say mom and dad live in Westchester or something like that, the services are based on where the older adult lives. So we would get people in touch with the Westchester OFA in that case. But the idea that we try to push with people of all ages is to get to know the Office for the Aging before they need them. Have that plan ready ahead of time, because if you're calling us right after mom broke her hip, you're going to be scrambling. And you may not think to ask the questions that you would normally ask if you had a plan. Now, we can help get you caught up, obviously, but the idea is to, let's say you've just turned 60 and you feel fine, you're in good shape, you're staying physically, mentally active, you can't envision a time where you might need this help. Give us a call then, have it on the radar for when things might go a little sideways, aging-wise. Mortality is inevitable, but what we're trying to do is help people expand what the experts call the health span, the parts of life where you are able to do all the things that right now you take for granted. But you do want to keep in mind that time off in the future when you might not.
What kind of services in particular?
Well, one of my first years at the Office for the Aging, we got a call from a woman in Stanfordville, and she was in her 80s, and she was getting along just fine independently, but she was in a house at the end of a long dirt driveway, and she called up looking for help getting her mail, because it was a long walk down to the mailbox and back up again. She needed a little bit of help with that. We followed up with her and family members as to what else she might qualify for. We're recording this now in the fall, in late September. Right now, this time of year is getting into Medicare season. And open enrollment begins every year on October 15th. It ends every year on December 7th, open enrollment being the time when you can make the changes that you think are necessary going into the following year's coverage, in this case, 2024. You may have seen ad upon ad for Medicare Advantage plans and things like that. Do they work for you? Who knows? One of the things we do a lot of this time of year is volunteer, non-sales oriented health insurance counseling, so that people can take a look at what they've got. Are they good to go for 24 or not? This is the time to make an appointment with our crew to take a look at that. First of all, there are cases where some older adults are also maybe homebound. We can help provide home delivered meals to those who qualify for that. We have a large combination of staff and volunteers who do a lot of deliveries to about between 400 and 500 older adults in the county, and we try to get to as many places as we can. Ours is called Home Delivered Meals. The phrase Meals on Wheels is used a lot. They work kind of alongside, and we try not to duplicate what they're doing right now. One of the Meals on Wheels outlets is active in Hyde Park and also the village of Rhinebeck, not the town of Rhinebeck, but wherever they are already doing well, we try to stay out of their way. But if they're having trouble getting to serve everybody, we try to pick up the slack. And that was happening earlier this year down in the Wappinger area. The Wheels on Wheels down there was at capacity, and we picked up after them. I do presentations for seniors groups all over Dutchess County to just get people caught up on what they need to know. There's a lot.
So you've talked about answering questions and help in the home. What about getting out of the home and transportation or going to things? It's such a big place when we're spread out. I always wonder about where I should live and if I'll be able to get around.
We can connect people through some services that are available through the county public transit department. Dial-A-Ride it may be a familiar one. Earlier this year, we started a pilot program with an organization called Go Grandparent. It's kind of an Uber and Lyft for older adults. We try to mainly use that for non-emergency medical transportation. So depending on the availability of Uber and Lyft drivers in one's area, they may be able to help out with Go Grandparent as well. You can private pay for Go Grandparent, and they'll take you pretty much anywhere. But for our purposes, we're trying to line people up with things like trips to the doctor. Let's say you're going to the eye doctor and you're having the drops put in, and you can't really drive maybe for that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Or if it's
Exactly.
outpatient surgery, as the case may be, where you shouldn't be behind the wheel of the car after you're done with whatever you had done. Go Grandparents, a good resource for something like that, for example.
And what are the friendship centers? I'm always thinking about, like, where do I meet people and how do I get together and during the day?
Well, we have 8 of them. One of them in Northern Dutchess is in Red Hook at the community center on Fisk Street, but we have 7 others. And I'll start from the north and work to the south. They're in Millerton. There's one in the South Amenia-Wassaic area. We tried to get quite a few in rural Dutchess County because connecting with people is that much more difficult when people are all spread out. We have one at our headquarters in Poughkeepsie. We have one in Pleasant Valley, one in Pauling, East Fishkill, and Beacon, and I think that's all of them. But we get, anywhere between 15 and 50 people at these on any given weekday, and they get a nutritious lunch there. They get informative presentations from within and without the county. There are games, there are occasional trips and things like that. There's always something that keeps them busy at the friendship centers.
And so this clip on the news about calls. Sorry.
Friendly calls, yes. That's another program we've started this year with help from the New York State Office for the Aging. And basically, it sounds like we're reinventing the wheel maybe, but it's a simple phone call. And it used to be something that people did second nature, but, as life became more digital on the internet and things like that, they lost the habit of simply picking up the phone and talking to somebody. And there are quite a few of older adults who are picking up on the technology themselves, and a few, though, that didn't. And they're a little worried about it. And what we want to do is help them not isolate themselves. That's something that got a lot more attention during the pandemic when people could not get out and have their usual in-person meetings. That has eased off, of course, somewhat, but friendly calls in the meantime, what it does is it takes a person at risk of social isolation who wants to do something about that and puts them in touch with a volunteer caller. And we kind of facilitate that relationship. And it's a call once a week, 20 to 30 minutes for up to 8 weeks. And we have a lot of seniors who have formed friendships from this. After the 8 weeks, they decide they're going to go have lunch or something like that. And sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And sometimes the calls are really, really long because one of the participants may be a chatterbox. And as long as they both agree to it, that's fine. And others may have shorter calls of just a few minutes if that's what they want to do.
Are you looking for volunteers?
Oh, yeah, always. And we are looking for volunteers, not just for friendly calls, but for all kinds of Office for the Aging programs. But for friendly calls, the volunteers need only be age 18 and up. The participants, in case anybody wonders about who we are getting those from, those are people who are already known to the Office for the Aging. Either they are clients of ours through home delivered meals, maybe they have a case manager or something like that, and they have agreed to take part in the program. So nobody's cold calling anybody. And we set up these calls so that it's going to happen at a specific date and time, because a lot of people are worried about phone scammers. But if the participant knows that their friendly caller is calling, let's say at 10:30 on a Wednesday morning, they will know that when that phone rings, it's their friendly calls volunteer.
And have you noticed anything in the last couple of years in terms of the population in the county of those who are aging? Has it gone up or down or stayed the same?
Oh, it's gone up by a lot, and in particular in northwestern Dutchess County. Specifically, I'm thinking of the town where I grew up. I grew up in Rhinebeck, and I was reading census tract map a few weeks ago. That's one of the things I do for fun. And I looked up close at the map of Rhinebeck. The median age in Rhinebeck and in a lot of rural Dutchess County was well over 50.
Wow,
And,
really?
it was 1/3 65 and up in all of Rhinebeck and 15% 80 and up. And, I just think, just an anecdote, I'll go grocery shopping and I'll see my first grade and my kindergarten teacher from 1969 and 70. Like, hey, how you doing? They wanted to stay here, but they're getting to be in their 80s and 90s, and the numbers are massive, and that comes up against a current and growing shortage in the amount of people who can help, not just family caregivers, but people throughout the healthcare sector, from entry level to experienced professionals, as people have retired and not been replaced. In the case of home aides, it's a tough job. And although the state has increased the minimum wage for aides, it's entry level. That is what it is. And but it's difficult, and there's a lot of injuries in that line of work just from trying to lift someone who may need turning, but they wanted to stay at home and stay out of a facility. And just to simplify the math, you might have 10 older adults who need help and 9 people who can help them. A lot of older adults, to their credit, have realized, you know what, the cavalry's not coming, and we've got to figure out how to do things ourselves as best we can when we can. And there are aging in place groups that pop up all around the county, and one of them is in northwestern Dutchess County for Rhinebeck residents, called Rhinebeck at Home, and I can connect Rhinebeck seniors with them if you'd like me to afterwards. But it's tough, especially in rural parts of Dutchess County.
So if you're young and looking for a career and you're strong, this could be a good
Yeah,
career.
that's, if you're good at it, it takes a special kind of person to do that kind of caring work, and not everybody has the ability and inclination to do it. And now, with the population of Dutchess County being about 70,000 older adults, it's about 20 to 25% of the county at least, and more in rural areas of the Dutchess County. You have more older adults, and the population of people who could take care of them stayed roughly the same. There didn't used to be that many people living into their 80s, 90s, and beyond 60 or 70 years ago during the peak of the baby boom. And now, not only are there that many more older adults, there are fewer younger people who can be employed in the caring professions.
So let's give some advice about planning ahead. I'm say early 50s-ish.
Okay.
So let's give advice to me. But what do you think I should start planning or thinking about if I want to stay in the Hudson Valley? What are the different topics or issues I should start to grapple with?
Well, you're 20 years late. Good luck. But that's one of the things I talk about to seniors groups, is planning for, let's say, what is their life around their house going to be like? Well, you take a look around the place where you live, and then envision yourself being perhaps in a wheelchair. Could you fit your wheelchair down the hallway where you live? Do you have too many stairs? Could you get around in the bathroom? And you start to look around and go, uh-oh. One of the things we have on the Office for the Aging website at dutchessny.gov/aging is a falls prevention checklist. If there's one thing that I could try to get people to prevent, it's falls, because you can prepare everything else correctly, and if you fall, break your hip, fracture your skull, that's really going to ruin all those best laid plans. So what we try to do is prevent falls by any means that will work. We encourage people to take part in one of our falls prevention programs. We have one called A Matter of Balance, and it's an 8-week class that meets once a week for several weeks. They do it in the fall, as the fall sessions just started, so the next one will be in the spring. It's a combination of exercises and classroom material. So it's not just sitting around listening to lectures. It's, how do you look at your house, where you live, where you travel, in a way that you will be able to, A, prevent the falls from happening in the first place, B, know what to do if you do find yourself falling, and then how to get back up again. And so it's a kind of class for all the people who are either they're worried about falling, or they've fallen once and they would rather not have that happen again. And we strongly encourage older adults within Dutchess County to take part in that class, and they can get in touch with us at the office to find out about that.
Great.
We try to get as many people as we can enrolled in our exercise classes, just because staying physically busy in any way is better than living a sedentary life. There are repeated studies that show if you are sitting around the house 10, 15 hours a day, you will start to lose the ability to do things that you take for granted. So any level of physical activity is better than none. Keeping physically busy and mentally busy are two of the biggest keys to what's called successful aging. And that might strike people as a phrase that's a little unusual. I know when I talked to my old
I love
my
it. I love
talk,
successful aging.
I talked to my radio colleagues about it, and so I said, I do these presentations on successful aging, and they looked at me and they said, well, okay, so you get up and your name's not in the obituaries, so you go about your day, ta-da, successful aging, you're done. Well, that's the good start, is waking up and you're on you're on the upside of the dirt. That's great. That's fine. So far, so good. Now what are you going to do?
The upside of the dirt.
Yeah, as in being not dead.
Yeah, I got it.
So, what are you going to do to keep yourself busy? I've seen various successful aging presentations that have 10, 15, 40 steps. And I thought, okay, that's a bit much. And I try to stick to about 13 that people can follow. They don't have to get all of them, but staying physically and socially active is right up near the top of the list. We're doing a wonderful job of just overfilling our calendar, and you can look up on the county calendar on dutchessny.gov all the Office for the Aging activities that are going on. Another new thing we just started, we're trying to capitalize on the pickleball craze. There were some new courts that opened up at Quiet Cove, which is right straight down Route 9 near the Hyde Park Poughkeepsie town line. There's 4 new courts as of late May, and we've had some classes there that drawn a whole lot of interest. And we thank Dutchess County Parks, by the way, for their help with that. And I think it's there are other communities all around the county who are working on finding some place for their older adults to play pickleball. So,
Yep.
if you're on a local recreation board, the pickleball thing, it's massive apparently. And I just started to learn how to play. It's not a terribly difficult thing to do. It's a smaller surface to play on than tennis, so there's not a whole lot of running around to do, but it is some level of physical activity, and it turns out that it's also social activity too.
Great. Hey, Brian, I ask everybody on the show, my brother-in-law got me doing this, about asking people their favorite place in the Hudson Valley, kind of a secret place maybe people don't know about or appreciate. And I'm kind of building a map of all these locations. And since you are from here and lived here, and you actually live near me, I guess I'd be curious what your favorite go-to place that you wouldn't mind sharing.
Oh boy. Well, there's probably too many to fit, but I'm thinking back to one of my days living in Clinton Corners, and I used to work in Poughkeepsie, and I would drive there and back along Salt Point Turnpike, and it's the only time in my life I've felt relaxed commuting, either there to or from work. As I got closer to home, I just felt more and more relaxed. So we were getting into foliage season, and there's going to be tons of tourists, and you're trying to find that spot that no one knows about just yet. And a while back, I just discovered a lot of the Dutchess County roads, the ones with the blue and gold signs. They go through some beautiful stretches of the county, and I don't hardly see any people on them aside from the locals who, whose lives I'm about to ruin by mentioning them, because I'm going to mention them anyway. If you continued out Salt Point Turnpike and you had the whole quadrant of the county, the Pine Plains, Stanford, Millerton, Amelia quadrant, you get off on a side road, you'll find something beautiful, and chances are you'll have it all to yourself. There's a lot of hiking areas that I don't think have been discovered. Over Labor Day weekend, my wife and I went to, it's called the Over Mountain Conservation Area, and it's just over the Columbia County line in Ankrum, and we went for a walk out there. This is Ankrum right outside of Millerton, and we had the whole place to ourselves.
There was no that.
Yeah, take a look for it. It's just over the county line, but that's one that was undiscovered by me till a couple of weeks ago. So try that one.
Great.
But if you're for more of a drive, then the whole if you look up where the hamlets of Smithfield and Chicomico are in northeastern Dutchess, that's some beautiful country right through there. So this is what I would do Back in my single days when I was trying to impress girls, I'd take them on a nice drive through the country.
Oh, I want to impress everyone. This is terrific.
And one more. There's a road outside of Millerton, which I don't know. It's called Charlie Hill Road, and apparently Franklin Roosevelt used to sneak up there when he was on alleged assignations.
Terrific. Good Roosevelt scandal location. Straight. Very important at Dutchess County.
Our job at the Office for the Aging is to facilitate what older adults and their caregivers throughout Dutchess County want, which overwhelmingly is to live happily, safely, independently in their own homes, and to connect people with assistance in the long-term care system if that kind of thing is necessary. But again, people want to stay in their own homes and in their own hometowns, connected with their friends as well as they possibly can. And the Office for the Aging's job is to facilitate that in any way we can think of. You can ask us almost anything. And if we don't immediately know the answer, we can put you in touch with the people who are much closer to the answer. And if somebody calls us during business hours, they'll get a human, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Phone number is 845-486-2555. Online, it's dutchessny.gov/aging. Tons of information there. I would recommend as well you sign up for the office's weekly newsletters, and I would do that even if I wasn't also the editor of the newsletters. But it's tons
Great. I'll
of
put a
information
link in the
there.
show notes. Yeah.
And there's a lot to juggle. And as we cooperate with each other, we give people a fuller picture of what they can do as an older adult or a caregiver for an older adult.
Down in the valley, moved up from the city. It's a new way of living and I'm trying to get used to it. 1 park coolers have an ounce of an idiot. Ordered a Manhattan and they call me a Cidiot. At first I hurt my feelings, but it's kinda got a ring to it. When you move to the country, they can tell when you're new to it. I'm looking at a place, but I'm trying to keep fitting in. It takes long to be a local, so for now I'm a Cidiot.